Thank you so much for joining the Research Task Force summer webinar about Moxibustion. Before we start, Dr. Yair Maimon, the president of the European TCM Association, wants to say a few words. So, Yair.
Muted. You're muted, Yair.
Huh?
Okay. Better now? So first of all, thank you everybody for coming and joining this wonderful webinar. You know, Moxa is young and we are in the summer. So just after the longest day, the Chinese pay a lot of attention to basically balancing yin and yang. So Moxa, as you will see, represent very much the yang and the movement. But this is not just the key. I think there is two things. First of all, I'm thankful to this wonderful team of the Research Task Force. It takes a lot of works and a lot of meeting to create such a webinar. And indeed, they've put a lot of effort to find the research and the evidence behind Moxa. It's not such an easy area to find conclusive and good evidence in. Acupuncture is well researched, and Moxa, because of its nature, it's more difficult to research, more difficult to have a consistent research, and I'm sure all of it will be discussed. But it does present a lot of other important clinical issues, including safety, when to use it, how to use it. And as you know, Moxa is not just used to warm, it also used to move. And we have to remember two things. One, we are dealing with Chinese medicine, yes, and we can apply a lot of things to create healing. So we can apply especially to acupuncture point, pressure, needles, Moxa. Each one will manifest a different movement in the qi of the body. So eventually we are talking about an amazing medicine that looks into different ways of promoting healing. The
Did we lose Yair? That's his cable connection.
Yeah, so I think we lost Yair. Is it right, Paulina? Yair is gone from the screen, right?
I think so.
I don't see him listed.
No.
Okay, so probably we had some connection issues. So let's proceed. Maybe I will share the screen. Can I share the screen, Paulina?
Yes, I think you should be able.
Okay. Paulina, can you see my screen and can you hear me?
Yes, we see your screen. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar about Moxibustion. Thank you. Unfortunately, Dr. Yair Maimon, the president of the European TCM Association, had some connection issues. But anyway, we would like to thank him for the introduction and for in ETCMA Association. My name is Gil Ton, and I would like, first of all, to thank you, all of you guys, the participants who come from many different areas. I can see some familiar faces from the UK, from the Netherlands, from Israel, obviously, from Greece. So thank you for joining. Your attendance and support are very important to us. It's also important to note that our webinar is being recorded. It will be available in our YouTube channel. So please subscribe to the ETCMA YouTube channel and share our content with your colleagues and spread this information to our members and also to our patients. Okay. Quickly, I want to introduce who we are and what are the aims of the research task force. So we are a small group. Recently, the group is extended and become bigger. And the core of the group are already working about 2 years. And we are motivated to provide relevant research materials and tools about acupuncture and Chinese medicine research-related content to our ETCMA members. And we also want to assist each one of you to become a better researcher by creating a well-written case reports and other research-related materials in order to have a bigger database that's related to research in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. At the moment, we have seven group members in our group. Myself, Gil Ton, I'm located in the Netherlands. We have Aram Akopian located in Greece, Mark Bowie from the UK, Pedro and Anna from Portugal, and we have Anya from Denmark. And the last member that you cannot see her photo is Claire from Ireland. Okay, so the research task force aims are to inform ETCMA members about innovative, relevant, and high-quality research of Chinese medicine, and to create research-related content with the general public and also Chinese medicine practitioners, and to encourage each one of you to be more familiar and to be more incorporate with research-related content. So our program for the coming year, 2023, we have 4 different newsletters and webinars in each quarter. So now we are at the quarter of the second quarter of the summer related, and our topic for today will be the Moxibustion. Later on in this year, we will have the gynecological related newsletter and webinar. And we will have also laser acupuncture at the end of the year and digestive complaints following afterwards. So this is us, the team, and our aims and objectives. And now I will pass the torch to Dr. Aram Akopian to start our presentations.
Thank you, Gil. Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening for the presentation. What you're going to hear today is a good smattering of some research, some clinical applications, some practical applications from my colleagues.
There's a webinar.
I'm sorry. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin the seminar with just a summary of Moxibustion, the history, the mystery, and some clinical applications and some research that we've been able to find. By the way, just to tack on to what my colleague Gil was saying, all of the presentations are available for you to download and to view, and also to share with your colleagues and with your patients as well. So these presentations will be accessible on the user drive, on the membership drive, subsequent to all of the presentations and the webinars. And the newsletters will also be accessible on the newsletter archives on the website, on the ETCMA main website. Now, the first citing of Moxibustion in classic texts, according to Wang et al., began in the early Han and Qin, in the late Han and Qin dynasties. From a variety of text summaries, there are excerpts that discuss the trajectories of meridians and diseases in the vessels, how to treat them, relationships between qi and the vessels, a variety of applications for very specific diseases in different parts of the body, and how moxibustion and the types of moxibustions can be used as clinical interventions. I'm not going to go through these in greater detail, but I do want to focus a little bit on some of the unique applications, from venomous snake bites, applying mustard poultice as a topical moxibustion at the DO20 vertex points, to skin warts, to various conditions of herniations, scrotal hernia or abdominal hernia, external hemorrhoids, and pruritus ani. Conditions were documented by the same individual in the overall research documentation. What's interesting about the development of moxibustion is the mystery element, right? According to the text book on the Record of Sovereign Teachings from Zheng Yu Huang, there are several applications for very unique conditions. For example, you could see the cervix point used for treating retained placenta or intrauterine death in miscarriages or in extrauterine pregnancies. There's even applications of the Zhong Yi point for possessions, for spiritual Shen disturbances, and even down to a detail of where the male application occurs on the left, and the female application of the moxibustion occurs on the right. Even in Western libraries, moxibustion can be found in the 1714 Frankfurt Museum of Michael Bernard. You could see textbooks on the application of moxibustion for various ailments as well. Documented applications for topical conditions, even scrofula, treated for moxibustions as well. For pediatric conditions, for somnolence, painful conditions, inflammation of the throat, toothache, yawning, the 18 point was used quite extensively. The application of Tai Chong point, kidney 1 point, for acute and chronic infantile convulsions, wind fright, as they called it, epilepsy, spasms, sore throat. So historically, there is a substantial evidence of documentation of the use of moxibustion in clinical settings. And it's not limited to just cold conditions. These are, there's a going stigma that moxa is a warming technique, therefore it's not applicable in heat conditions. Under right conditions, under right circumstances, they could be very effective for a variety of conditions. Yangling Chuang, for example, was used for pain, swelling in the feet, especially in wind, cold, bee conditions, difficulty to sit or stand, weakness, even facial edema due to cold bee conditions. Now, moving forward in the modern days, there are some research that we've been able to, as a collective from the ETCMA Research Task Force, to put together for you and present. You'll hear more about safety and efficacy from Mark's presentation, but there are some summaries here of some research application. Waller, Johnson et al. Conducted research on chemotherapeutic agents and their onset of side effects. For example, irinotecan-induced delayed onset diarrhea in chemotherapy can be treated with hot ironing or moxa, salt moxa packet application at Jiangsu and Shenzhou with more efficacy and able to reduce the onset and the prevalence of the condition, and also reduce the side effects of the medicine as well. The application in osteoarthritis. Moxibustion in acupuncture can relieve knee osteoarthritis, KO, symptoms, and apparently the therapeutic effects of moxibustion is, according to this one research of Chen et al., is indicated as superior to acupuncture treatments for different types of moxibustions. And the anticipated or documented mechanism for the effectiveness may be in reducing serum inflammatory factors and reducing oxidative stress in the body. Application in UI, in urinary incontinence, especially post-stroke patients where the central nervous system is affected. Ginger or salt partition moxibustion has been found effective according to this particular research of Xia Li et al. And the possible mechanism for the efficacy could be the combination of thermal radiation and pharmacological effects of the substrate that is being used for the partition of the chemical component. There are systemic reviews that identified reliable evidence of safety and effectiveness of various forms of moxibustions, both topical, distal, and partitioned, for treatment of pediatric and infantile diarrhea. And this has provided a solid therapeutic basis for future clinical applications, as seen here in the application of a handheld moxa stick for stomach 25 point. In classical text, many have seen the dragon or the long snake moxibustion with salt or ginger partitioning. The effectiveness of both ginger and salt partitioned long snake moxibustion, especially up and down the spinal column, has been very effective in relieving low back pain, improving daily life activities, especially in cold B syndrome conditions, as well as affecting emotions. As we know, the spinal column is involved in the flow of Jing into the sea of marrow, and the effectiveness of this therapeutic intervention can help improve negative emotions as well associated with these types of spinal and low back pain, especially chronic non-specific low back pain conditions, right? According to Teng Li et al. Now, so there are some innovations that are happening because the application of local concentrated heat is of interest in various environments. So there are some technological innovations, especially with moxa being, especially the loose moxa being very irritating to some people because of the smoke. And if you're going to be working around the face or around the certain areas, you may consider an application of a local concentrated heat. So there are some devices that are being developed and innovated. I always, recommend you do your homework on choosing devices. We don't recommend any specific device over another, but we can always consider applying a smokeless moxa for topical LCH applications. In this one particular study that was conducted by Wollard et al., the prodromal symptoms in recurrent herpes in labialis around the mouth were attenuated more effectively by the LCH heat, the local concentrated heat, than the application of acyclovir. So as a clinical application, as an intervention, local concentrated heat by way of even smokeless moxa has been shown to be more effective than acyclovir, which is an anti-herpes medication at this point. So these are some summaries of the research that you're going to be seeing and some more very interesting clinical applications, practical applications of moxibustion by my colleagues. So before I pass the baton to someone else, I want to thank you again for taking your time to participate. And I do have something that I would like to present towards the end as a request from the ETCMA to promote acupuncture and our profession. So Gil, make sure that you remind me to take the last part of the seminar to take a moment and invite everyone here to participate on the program. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'm going to pass the baton to my colleague at this point. Okay. Who's up next?
Yeah. Did we decide who's next? It's presumably either me or you, Pedro.
Yeah, it's you, Mark. You may follow, please.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark.
I'll go ahead. well, that's the end. So okay. So I'm talking about safety, and if you didn't know much about it, if you didn't know much about acupuncture, you might be forgiven for thinking that it was a pretty dangerous business. Not only does it involve sticking sharp objects into people, but also setting light to substances on their skin or close by it. However, we know nowadays that acupuncture is very safe. And how do we know this? We know it, and not only know it, but also we can prove it. And the best evidence for this comes from large prospective surveys of adverse events from acupuncture treatment, data collected from either practitioners or patients, or preferably both. And the best evidence for this came, in fact, in the 2000s in Europe, a couple of surveys in the UK, and an absolutely huge one in Germany. And it's hard to overemphasize the importance of those studies, because after years of arguing the toss over, oh, that person killed themselves by stabbing themselves with a sewing needle and pierced the pericardium, that wasn't acupuncture. It certainly wasn't an acupuncturist doing it. It's someone treated themselves. But those sort of cases that cropped up in the news or in the scientific literature every now and again were used to beat us in terms of safety aspects. And it wasn't until you got these big prospective surveys that it could be all put into context. And the context is, how often do adverse events arise? How often do serious adverse events arise? And yeah, and as I say, that was nailed in the 2000s. But what about Moxibustion? And Moxibustion involves a naked flame. It involves, as I said, burning herbs on the surface of the skin or close to the surface of the skin. And you can see why acupuncture insurers, are not likely to be that keen on Moxibustion. And indeed, it may be that there are more claims for Moxa than anything else, insurance claims. Okay. So what evidence do we have about Moxibustion and its safety? Let's have a look at those big acupuncture surveys, first of all. So here's the massive German one, VIT 2009. And in these surveys, in order to have enough evidence to pick up very rare adverse events, you need to have a lot of treatment sessions. And they calculated that you needed at least 30,000, okay? Now, the two UK studies were both around 30,000 sessions. German one was 2.2 million treatment sessions. And you can see that there were only 14 Moxa burns came up from that. That is 0.001%, which I think is about one in 100,000. And also note that the burns made up only 0.1% of all the adverse events. Okay. Now, if you look at the McPherson trial, it's quite different, because you're now looking at professional acupuncturists rather than physician acupuncturists, whom there are a lot of in Germany. So here we've got the 30,000 sessions, 28 burns. So you've now got 1 in 1,000. rather than 1 in 100,000. But they still only make up around 3% of all adverse events. And there was a similar sort of study done in Japan, not really large enough. You see, it's only got 14,000 treatment sessions, 24 burns, 0.2%. And again, it was made up about 3% of all the adverse events. So what do the acupuncture surveys tell us about Moxibustion safety? And the answer to that is not very much. And the reason is, and the reason why why these numbers are so small is that not all of these practitioners were using Moxa, okay? And certainly not in all 2.2 million treatment sessions in Germany was Moxa being used, probably in only a few of them, relatively few of them, okay? We don't know what proportion of these practitioners were regularly using Moxa. We don't know what proportion of those treatment sessions involve Moxibustion. And so we can't answer this question. We can probably only say that the incidence of burns is maybe something that's at least as much as 0.1% or 0.2%. And we can't say much about other adverse events because it's all mixed up with acupuncture needling, okay? That's the thing, that probably all of these people, or the vast majority, were needling, but only a proportion were using Moxibustion. And this is where the big gap in our data is. Okay. So another issue with looking at the research data is that burns are not necessarily always classified as adverse events. Because obviously it can be part of normal practice. You're using direct Moxibustion in a scarring sort of way. Indeed, in that Japanese study, most of the burns, so most of those 24 burns there, no, sorry, those 24 burns were the ones that he included, but there were another 55 burns that he didn't include. He said that they weren't adverse events. They were only small burns, and they were all associated with getting informed consent for them from the patient for that sort of use of Moxibustion. So the question of what information the practitioner and the patient share, what their expectations are, and whether you have consent is obviously crucial. But we know from data from hospital burns units in China, Korea, the papers published from both of those, that serious burns do arise. And you can see, and that one would never get excluded as being not an adverse event. Okay. So as well as the burns, obviously the other main area for adverse events in Moxibustion is the smoke. And there have been various experimental studies done on the combustion products from Moxa smoke. I know there's quite a mixture of nasty or potentially nasty substances that you can get in there. And there have been a number of studies where they've tested out smoke being produced from Moxa in different size rooms and different amounts of Moxa and different lengths of time and so on to try and work out what's safe and what isn't safe. And the levels of those sorts of things there can be higher than in environmental protection guidelines, but generally it's felt that it's probably unusual that they're exceeded in normal treatment conditions. And the thing is, what normal treatment conditions are must vary a lot from country to country and practitioner to practitioner. I had some Moxibustion in China in one particular treatment, and the size of the Moxa-6 they use, and the great wadges of it held in forceps, and the time it went on for, I'd be a bit skeptical about whether it was below guidelines or not. If you look at this survey done in 3 institutions in Shanghai, you can see that there were a significant proportion of both the practitioners and patients who had regular long-term exposure to Moxa did develop irritations of the eyes and/or throat. So the smoke can be an issue. So where else can we look for evidence about this? And another place is case reports. So sometimes cases of an adverse event get published. So it's quite good for picking up some information about rare and serious adverse events, and for learning lessons about what you might need to watch out for. What sort of thing is possible, but it doesn't tell you anything at all about how frequent these things are in normal practice. And here's an example of a paper. It's a Chinese one in 2014. So they did a systematic review. They picked up 24 published reports, and they showed up 64 Moxibustion adverse events. And you can see 43 of those were burns, 7 were classed as allergies, and 6 were infections. And the infections would have come, I think, largely after having had a burn. But if you look into the details of it, you can see that of those 43 burns, most of them were not what we call normal practice from a practitioner. They were mostly from Moxa use as a folk remedy, specifically for neonatal jaundice. So this sort of data can be very misleading. And another place, obviously, where you might look for data is in clinical trials. And there's an example here with Moxibustion for breech presentation, which is obviously one of the places where you can get trials that are just about Moxibustion, not where Moxa is used alongside acupuncture, which is a problem with a lot of this data. So this was an Australian one. They found that those were the most frequent adverse events, whether you think they are adverse or not. Increased fetal movements, uterine contractions. The trouble is that although you think that clinical trials, they're surely doing things in a kind of rigorous scientific way, but this is not necessarily the case, because the reporting of adverse events in clinical trials is often really bad. In fact, only one of the trials covered in that systematic review had proper reporting of adverse events. So again, can't say anything about quantitative data. Here's another example, and this one was, Aram was talking about Moxibustion for knee osteoarthritis. This is a big Korean study. It had very good outcomes in terms of the effectiveness of the treatment. In terms of adverse events, you can see that from the about 1,200 treatments, you've got 120 or so, 10.5% Moxibustion related adverse events, of which all but 2 of them were burns. So 6 first degree, these are the very minor ones, 113 second degree. Now, classing the events as mild, moderate, or severe, you can see that one of those, presumably one of the burns, was classed as a severe burn. So they do happen. So summing up, and it's a bit difficult to sum this up, because our data, we've got various sources of data, but none of them give us a good, accurate estimate of how safe Moxa is in terms of the incidence of these kinds of adverse events, burns particularly, in normal practice. We know that most of them are minor, but severe burns can occur. We don't know how often. And I say that Moxibustion adverse events are generally avoidable with proper training, with due care and attention, and with alternative ways of doing the Moxibustion. And again, Aram referred to some of that. And I can tell you that back in my earlier days of practice, with one patient, I singed the bottom of their hair. With another patient, I singed the bottom of their shirt tails. And I haven't done that. Was a long time ago, and it was just carelessness, right? And thankfully, there is, as you'd expect, with more clinical experience, you're less risky, and there is some research that confirms that, some fairly recent research that confirms that. And if you're looking at alternative ways, there's, as Aram said, smokeless Moxa for avoiding the smoke. If you want to cut down on the others, the burns particularly, then you might consider some kind of electronic type of Moxibustion device. Or if you're really going the whole hog, you might consider something like this. This is Hans' Moxibustion robot. Safe, stable, clean, convenient. But what I'd say for summing up is that Moxibustion is an integral part of traditional Chinese medicine, but we need to pay careful attention to its safety. And this is something, and I think there's work to be done there, both by researchers in terms of getting better data on safety, and also by practitioners in the way that they operate, and hence reducing the numbers of adverse events that arise. Thank you very much. That's the end of my talk.
Thank you, Mark, for your presentation. Now I will take the next step on our webinar. Everyone is listening. Everything is good? Paulina?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
You can go on.
So let's go. Today I will try to present dynamic Moxibustion. That is a technique that is not written at least building Chinese English textbooks. And for us, it's try to apply a technique of Moxibustion combined with Twina technique. And this is the definition. Apply Twina and Moxibustion technique on body sites to promote qi and blood circulation and expel external pathogenic factors. It was presented by Dr. Tao Kun at Qinghai Hospital and Nanjing, and we will see how to perform it. Main actions for dynamic Moxibustion: expel wind, harmonize in and wei qi, drain channels and collaterals by promote blood circulation, resolve blood stasis, worm channels and collaterals, and resolve dampness. How can we apply this method? We can apply Twina techniques such as Dianfa, Anfa, Hofa, Jifa, Zhenfa on treatment areas. And each technique may have a specific approach in order to help some needs, some clinical principle, like Dianfa may expel wind and relieve pain. Anfa smooth the muscle and promote blood flow. Rofa regulate qi and stop stagnation, so it relieves sinews and relieve edema and stop the pain. Promote qi and blood circulation, the technique of Jifa. And Zhenfa warms and move the blood and relieve adhesions. How to proceed? We may cut Moxa roll on a 1 or 2 tun. Then we may fix the Moxa roll on a device that I will show next, close the device and wait it for warming up. And the treatment should be applied on area or channel by a period of 15 to 20 minutes. We should pay attention on safety for appliance. We need to be gentle on the technique. We should avoid technique of pushing to IFA, and we should clean the hashes from the device regularly in order for not spend hashes on the body and in terms of getting a burn on the skin. So this is a device that was developed for fixing the Moxa. Then we should ignite it in, then we cover and we wait until the filling is tested with the hands and we can apply at the body sites or areas. And now we will try to identify which application sites we can perform this technique. It might be used on the neck, back, and low pain. It can be applied at shoulders. It can be in arms and thighs and legs. Now, if everything went good, we will see old way to perform that used in materia medica on this technique. There is a red tissue that is warm, then the roll of Moxa is wrapped on, and then the technique is applied directly. So this technique should be applied with experienced and trained professional in order to not get damage the skin or to get burned if get too hot. Okay, this is an example how to apply it. And then we have a different usage with the device that was presented before to apply at the shoulder side or the shoulder glides and help the body to relieve the pain or to improve blood circulation or to expel some external pathogenic factor. Those are just representative, and it should be applied by a professional on TCM or acupuncture that, oops, sorry, no. So now we go forward on research. This is a term that is not easy to find research on. We have a colleague of ours in Lisbon that she applied a research, and she applied the technique on effects of Moxibustion on low back pain with a single or unique treatment. The objective was to verify the effects of dynamic Moxibustion on low back pain in a single treatment. How it was performed was 51 people was divided in two groups. 23 came to control and 28 came to experimental group, and a single treatment was performed. The pain intensity was assessed before, immediately after, and a week after the treatment. And the results. In both groups, pain intensity decreased immediately after and 1 week after the treatment. However, this decrease was more pronounced in the experimental group in which dynamic Moxibustion was used. So here you have a graphic that allows us to understand the change. Pain intensity was took by a visual analog scale, and on the black we have pain intensity prior to treatment, and the mean was 4.36. On blue we have intensity immediately after the treatment with 1.32 on experimental group, and a pain after 1 week of the treatment. And we can see the decrease of 4.36 to 2.28. This was the experimental group. In control group, it was performed the technique without the Moxa inside of the device. So we can assess by the numbers presented here that the control group was less effective on the control of 1 week after the treatment. So Moxibustion helps to improve 1 week after the treatment. What can be concluded by this study was the dynamic Moxibustion presents better results than twin massage and without the Moxa inside the device, and it is responsible for the decrease of pain intensity immediately and after 1 week of the treatment, and for the reduction of the impact of pain on daily activities. Our colleague was Maria Bench, and we can find here the link to see the Portuguese presentation paper. Sorry. Here we have another study that was applied by Zhang Liangshen and et al. And it was performed at 2016. And the title was Acupuncture Assisted by Dynamic Moxibustion for Adult Ankylosing Spondylitis in the early to mild stage. The objective of this clinical study was to identify the difference between acupuncture combined with Moxibustion and acupuncture alone for treatment of AS at the early to mid stage based on medication. So the method, we have 55 patients and a group of randomly divided, it comes from 28 patients, and acupuncture group came to 27. The two groups were treated with oral administration of sulfasalazine tablets. So the two groups are on tabs, and the difference was appliance of acupuncture on both group 2, and one group we do Moxibustion. So we do dynamic Moxibustion. On the group of acupuncture and Moxibustion, the points were extra points of Jiaji. Then we go to bladder 23, Shenshu. We come to 25, bladder 25, Dashan Shu, bladder 40, Weizhong. And the dynamic Moxibustion was applied on the first line of Taiyang bladder, urinary bladder meridian, and at the Dumai vessel from Dazui on 14 governor vessel, and Yaoshu to governor vessel number 2. So the study take the index. There is a BAFI, that is a Bath Ankylosing Spondylitis Functional Index, and the BASDAI, that were index that were assessed in order to understand the effectiveness of this research. And the result was good to understand the appliance of dynamic Moxibustion, and it was performed like a 96.5% in acupuncture Moxibustion group, which was superior to 88.9% in acupuncture group. Compared before the treatment, the BASFI and the BASDAI were reduced after the treatment in the two groups, which were more significant in acupuncture Moxibustion group. So, to conclude, based on medication, acupuncture combined with dynamic Moxibustion could improve the clinical symptoms of AS, which is superior to a simple use of acupuncture. So, if we combine dynamic Moxibustion in clinical symptoms, it can be even more effective. So, this was my presentation for today. Thank you for your attendance, and see you in the next webinar. Now it's for Aram, I suppose.
Okay. I think I already covered my part. So we had the opening statements, remember? So Gail, do we have another speaker, or are we concluding? Gail? Okay. Well, while we're waiting for Gail, I'll take the moment and I'll introduce you to a program that we're launching from ETCMA. as an opportunistic individual. I'm going to make sure that everybody gets a chance to participate. You're all familiar with the fact that November 16th is the day where the world commemorates Acupuncture Day. And ETCMA, in combination and in collaboration with many other associations and organizations from around the world, is actively promoting that day as the commemoration day for acupuncture and Moxibustion. To that event, we have many campaigns out, and I would like to extend an invitation to all of you in our profession to actively participate in promoting this date, November 16th. We have 141 days. If you go to our site, etcma.org, and you observe on the World Acupuncture Day tab, there are 2 actions that you can contribute. One is to sign a petition. There is a change.org petition to actually collect enough signatures to recommend Google to change its doodle. Does anyone know what the Google Doodle is? Raise your hand if you don't. When you go to Google, you see the Google sign. On special occasions, that gets changed with some artwork. We'd like them to change that to include the acupuncture concept. It's a simple request, and if we have enough signatures, we should be able to promote that event. So I'd like it. It doesn't cost you anything. Go to change.org or go to our acupuncture website, World Acupuncture Day. I'll share it in the chat as well, and sign the petition and share it. The more signatures we can get, the better we can be able to promote our profession in the world, in the community. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in the effort to unite ourselves as a profession around the world, there is a campaign called World Does Acupuncture, which is an active campaign to develop a global map of acupuncturists with a message. And we have sample messages. You can add your voice to it. There's an actual form that you can go in and submit your participation, and you'll get a little dot with your message right on there. And that message will then play out.
Hello, I am Adriana Val.
And you're probably not hearing the audio, right? Yeah.
We do.
So you are, or you're not? You are.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Well-trained practitioner, acupuncture changes lives.
Simple messages, right? Simple 10-second message. And I would like to have a unique map like this that has hundreds, if not thousands, of these little dots of our profession representing acupuncture. We have very unique messages that we've created for you, very simple scripts. So when you add your voice, there are 3 scripts. You can choose the script you want that is close to you. You can literally do this from your mobile phone, record it, email it, upload it, and you're done. And it'll appear on our map as a little map marker, like you saw here. And let's get November 16th with lots of little Google dot marks, all right? So that's all I wanted to share. Let's promote together, let's move forward and make World Acupuncture Day a truly global event. So thank you very much. And I think with Gil's permission, we can open it up for conversations. Thank you. No questions?
Aram, there is actually
Yeah.
one question in the chat. I think that was in relation to the presentation you gave earlier. And the question was, what was the point for diarrhea in chemo patients?
Yeah, Jiangshu, I keep going to the Chinese. Stomach 25 and stomach 37. Stomach 36, sorry. Let's see,
Thank
meeting
you.
group chat. So here is the link for the Acupuncture Day, and I will also send the petition link as well. So we can all go and let's see. Details. No, there it is. Okay. And there's the petition. That's it. I mean, it's amazing, you know. Just in Europe, just in ETCMA, we have 12,000 member practitioners, right? From all the associations. If half of them sign, we've met our number requirements. So please promote, push this out into your social media campaign, into your association. If you represent an association, share it with your colleagues, put it on your own Facebook. This is something that represents our profession, and we need to be proud of representing that profession. And we've given you tools to do that. One of the things that I also didn't mention is we have a very nice brief history of acupuncture that you can use in a timeline basis that really highlights all the key events that took place in the development of acupuncture historically, and its migration and movement into the West, and some of the unique events that promoted that movement. And we also have a library of very interesting and unique icons and graphics that you can download for free and use. They contain all of the hashtags like I do acupuncture, acupuncture works, acupuncture changes lives. These are all tied together with the message of the video recording scripts that we've put together. These can be your email signatures. You can print them on T-shirts, send them out to your patients, whatever. That's all there for you to use as free resources from ETCMA. Okay. Do I have any closing remarks from Dr. Yair? Or maybe Ricardo, or perhaps Gil? All right.
Okay, so I don't know, no one is saying anything. So I'm just saying thank you for all the work you did. It was wonderful. I like a lot of your presentations, and I think that's a good opportunity to everyone to take a look at things that Research Task Force has been doing for the past year. A lot of good materials, quality materials that we're going to add. And if you have any suggestions that you want to make to the Research Task Force, please do so. And please continue following up with us in the newsletter, in our webinars, in everything that we do, besides the task force itself. And I want to say that we'll have the School Leaders Day coming also on the 9th of the next month. And if you don't have yet registered, please do so. If you don't have the link, send a message to our secretary or administrator, and they will provide you with the link. So once more, thank you. I know that Gil is in the airport. I know that Mark is on vacation. Paul is on vacation. But here you can see the work, the passion that all of these people have. And we don't pay them a dime for this. So I cannot say how much I appreciate all of the work that you have been doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. All right. Okay, well, everyone have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you on ESLD, on School Leaders Day. If not, August is going to be gynecology, which is going to have two parts. It's going to have general gynecology, so PMS-related conditions, menopause-related conditions, research on those, and also a subsection on fertility and clinical studies and research on the application of acupuncture for fertility cases. Right?
And maybe for the ones who are interested, there will also be this media training coming up. So upcoming Thursday in the morning on the 29th of June, and also in the evening on the 6th of July, there will be a BBC reporter who is specialized in giving media training. So since we are always also in contact with people around us, and we want to bring out TCM as good as possible, I think this is a great opportunity that you could follow for free. So I think Aram is also, Georgetta sent an email also to all of the national associations, and I think Aram is also on the social media on this.
I'm
So,
honest, and then you're angry about it as if I was.
oh, that was here. Okay, so hopefully see you there as well.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Adrian. One more thing. A lot happening at the ETCMA, a lot more things coming your way. In September, there will be a social media webinar, which will be coming from the communications committee of ETCMA, and it'll give you basics 101 on social media, do's and don'ts, how to promote yourself, what are some of the advanced tools, with the advent of all these different social media platforms, how do you leverage that, how do you integrate all of that together, some very, very specific useful tools for you, and statistical data, and it'll be coming out, so stay tuned for announcements on that event as well. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay.